You think you know your parents. You think their quiet routines, their tired smiles, their ordinary arguments about bills and dinner are the full story of their lives. But what if one ordinary Tuesday evening ripped that belief apart and left you standing in the ruins of everything you thought was solid? Stay with me until the very last word of this story, because the truth that found me a week after I discovered my parents unconscious on our living room floor will not only break your heart, it might force you to look at your own family with completely different eyes. And if anything in these next minutes moves you, even a little, please hit that like button right now and subscribe. These stories only keep coming if you let the algorithm know they matter. I was 22, fresh out of college, living back in the small two-story house where I grew up because rent in the city was impossible and my student loans were already breathing down my neck. My parents, Maria and David, were the kind of people who never asked for much. Mom worked the early shift at the hospital cafeteria. Dad drove a delivery truck for a local hardware store. They had gray at the temples and soft voices and a habit of saving the better leftovers for me. I treated them like background noise. I came home late, slept until noon, scrolled on my phone at the dinner table, and answered their questions with one-word shrugs. I told myself I was just tired from the real world. Looking back, I was simply selfish. That Tuesday I came home around 9. The porch light was off, which was strange. The front door was unlocked. The television was on but muted, casting a blue glow across the dark living room. And there, on the floor between the couch and the coffee table, were my parents. Mom was curled on her side, one arm stretched toward Dad. Dad lay on his back, eyes half open but empty. Neither of them moved when I screamed their names. I dropped to my knees so hard the carpet burned my skin. I shook them. I pressed my ear to their chests. Shallow breathing, cold skin, the smell of something chemical and wrong. I called 911 with hands that wouldn't stop shaking. The operator kept telling me to stay calm while I counted their breaths out loud like a child reciting a prayer. The paramedics arrived in what felt like hours. They worked on them right there on the floor while I stood against the wall, useless, repeating, "Please," under my breath. At the hospital the doctors said it was a combination of prescription sleeping pills and alcohol, enough to stop two hearts if we had been even 30 minutes later. They pumped their stomach. They put them on oxygen. They told me the next 72 hours would decide everything. I lived in that hospital for 3 days. I slept in the stiff plastic chairs. I drank coffee that tasted like metal. I called my older sister who lived 3 states away and listened to her cry through the phone. I watched the monitors beep and tried to remember the last time I had said, "I love you," without it sounding automatic. When they finally woke, first Dad, then Mom a few hours later, they looked at me with eyes full of something I could not name. Guilt, shame, exhaustion so deep it looked like surrender. They apologized. They said they never meant for me to find them. They said they just needed the noise to stop for a while. I nodded and held their hands and told them everything would be okay, even though nothing felt okay. They came home after 5 days. The house felt smaller somehow. We moved carefully around each other, speaking in soft, careful sentences. I made them tea. I helped Mom up the stairs. I sat with Dad while he stared at the blank television. I thought the worst was over. I thought we would slowly climb back to normal. I was wrong. A week after that night, while Mom napped and Dad was at a follow-up appointment, I decided to clean the living room. I needed to erase the image of their bodies on the carpet. I pulled the couch away from the wall and found a small, battered notebook that had slipped behind it. It was Mom's handwriting, pages and pages of numbers, lists, crossed-out plans. Bank statements folded inside, letters from collection agencies, medical bills from years ago that I never knew existed. And then, near the back, a single page written like a letter that was never meant to be sent. It was addressed to me and my sister. They had been drowning for years. The hospital had underpaid Mom for so long that they took a second mortgage just to keep the lights on. Dad's delivery job cut hours during the pandemic and never fully recovered. There was still debt left from my sister's emergency surgery when she was 16, the one that saved her life but left our parents quietly selling jewelry and skipping their own doctor visits. They had been skipping meals so I could have full ones during college. They had been taking on extra shifts so I wouldn't have to work while studying. And when the final notice came, the one that said the house would be gone in 60 days, they simply ran out of ways to pretend everything was fine. The sleeping pills were not a cry for help in the way I first thought. They were the only quiet they could still control. They wrote that they hoped we would understand one day that they had tried everything else first. They wrote that they loved us more than the shame of failing. They wrote that they were tired of being the people who always held it together while the floor kept falling. I sat on the floor where I had found them and read that page until the words blurred. The truth did not just shatter me. It rearranged every memory I had. Every time Mom said she wasn't hungry. Every time Dad left the house before sunrise and came back after dark. Every quiet birthday they insisted on keeping simple. All of it had been love wearing the mask of ordinary struggle. And I had been too busy feeling entitled to my own exhaustion to notice theirs. That night I sat them down at the kitchen table. I placed the notebook between us. Mom started crying before I finished the first sentence. Dad reached for her hand and looked at me like a man waiting for a verdict. I told them I was angry, not at them, but at the silence we had all agreed to live inside. I told them I was sorry for every rolled eye, every ignored call, every time I treated their sacrifices like background noise. I told them we were going to face this together now, out loud, without secrets. The weeks that followed were hard in a different way. We met with a financial counselor. My sister flew in and we sold what we could. Old furniture, my childhood gaming console, Mom's wedding china that she insisted she no longer needed. I took a night job stocking shelves and put every paycheck toward the debt. Dad started talking about his own father, who had also worked himself into silence. Mom admitted she had been having panic attacks for 2 years and never told anyone. We learned how to say, "I'm scared," without wrapping it in jokes or excuses. There were nights I still woke up thinking I heard them fall. There were mornings Mom looked at the notebook like it might burn her. But slowly, the house stopped feeling like a place where people disappeared into their private pain. It started feeling like a place where people stayed and fought for each other in the light. I am telling you this because I almost lost them without ever really knowing them. I am telling you this because the people who love you the most are often the ones who suffer the quietest. And I am telling you this because the version of them you see every day, the tired smiles, the small complaints, the ordinary strength, might be the only version they have the energy left to show. If you still have parents, or anyone who has carried you farther than you realized, do not wait for a hospital room or a hidden notebook to start paying attention. Ask the questions that feel awkward. Notice the things they stop mentioning. Say the soft words out loud while there is still time for them to hear. And if this story reached any part of you that needed reaching, please like this video and subscribe. Share it with someone who might need the reminder. Because the truth that shattered me also put something back together. Something stronger, something honest, something that still wakes up every morning and chooses to stay. You are not alone in the quiet struggles. And neither are the people who love you.